Well, hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. Tony Myles is a Manx musician born on the Isle of Man. He was the rhythm guitarist in the 1960s beat psych pop band The Poets. The band formed in Glasgow in the early 60s. The original lineup was George Gallacher vocals, John Dawson bass, Alan Weir drums, Hume Paton lead and 12-string guitar, and Tony on rhythm guitar. Today, Tony is the only surviving member. In 1964, the Poets made the British charts with the song Now We're Thru. Though no album was released during the band's existence, several singles did see the light of day. A CD compilation entitled Wooden Spoon, the Singles Anthology, 1964 to 1967, was issued on Grapefruit Records in 2011. Mr. Myles currently resides in Spain and has worked in broadcasting as a radio presenter and hosts a weekly radio show. My guest is also an avid bridge player and continues writing music in his home studio. Well, welcome, Tony.
Thank you, my friend. Good introduction. Well done.
Thank you for being here and taking time out to do this. It's really
That's my pleasure. My pleasure. I know that I said to you in the preamble, I'm constantly amazed that there are people such as yourself who have an interest in music, which we created 60 years ago. I mean, 60 years, Greg. I mean, right. I don't believe that even you, with your youthful looks, can even remember half the way back to those days. It's incredible.
No, I don't. I was just born, actually, or maybe a couple of years old when you got started. So
really? Yeah. Okay. Well, you're looking well on it, young man. You are. Really.
well, thank you. Well, yeah, it's I'm an Anglophile. I've always enjoyed, the UK, the music coming out of English music, Scottish, Irish, all of that going back to those 60s and 70s. So you'll see a lot of the interviews I do are with UK musicians.
Where are you now? Where are you located now?
I'm in a place called Wiley, Texas, which I know you've never heard of. It's about 25 miles northeast of Dallas.
Oh, right. Okay.
So you kind of get the idea.
Right.
Northeast.
And you just, whilst I'm just getting ready for dinner, you probably just finished your breakfast, I guess.
Oh, okay. I had one soft and chewy bar. I better not say the brand's name because I can't advertise.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, if you need to take any break at all, bathroom or whatever, let me know. I can always edit anything like that.
That's cool.
We can do that.
I'm comfortable. Yeah.
All right. Well, take us back to the beginning. Talk about where you were born.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I was born in the Isle of Man, which it's a dot in the middle of the Irish Sea. It's 32 miles, 32 miles by 10. And most people, if you are a fan of motorcycling, know exactly where it is because it's the haven for motorcyclists in the early part of the summer months. And all you can hear are motorcycle engines and the smell of leather and oil for the best part of about 4 weeks. And the other thing, of course, is the Isle of Man is self-governing, so that therefore they're allowed to get away with all sorts of things, like having super-powered motorcycles tearing around the roads. It's incredible. Every year it happens. And I mentioned earlier on, my friend, that it's also an incredible statistic that the TT races, which they are, that's the name of them, every year somebody used to die actually racing their motorcycle around these roads. And yet it was allowed to continue. And I can think of no other activity, no other sport in the world where you would accept, okay, we're going to have this event and we expect that somebody's going to get killed.
Yeah.
it could never happen, but it does every year in the Isle of Man. The speeds are phenomenal. The numbers are amazing. And it just, I mean, it's, if you are a local, then it's ka-ching because, you know, for those few weeks, you just make enough just to retire for the rest of the year. If you're in business, it's amazing. It's incredible.
Well, how many of your early years did you spend there?
Oh, I left actually. A lot of my family are Scottish. My father was Scottish. My mother was Manx, and so therefore we left and ended up going to secondary education in Scotland, and that was fine because that was where I met Alan Weir. He was the drummer in the band, and he and I, whilst at school, um, we actually formed our own little band before predated the Poets, and we had our own little band, and we were absolute rubbish.
Was that was that the graduates? Was that the graduates?
Graduates, yeah. How
Yeah.
well researched you are, my friend. It's incredible. It was a great, we were absolutely, I think we practiced and practiced, and we mastered about three numbers. And we had a singer who thought that he was Gene Vincent.
Okay.
And he wanted to have the persona of Gene Vincent, you know, leather and greasy hair and everything. Uh, and so we actually mastered about three or four songs. And we used to, if we ever played anywhere, we just recycle those songs over and over again. I don't think I don't think anybody really noticed all that much because we were just making a noise at the time. But that was how it all started. That's how I met Alan. And of course, subsequently, that led into the opportunity for me to join the Poets.
Yeah. Well, tell the I wanted to go back a little bit and talk about some what was the first musical instrument that you learned to play?
Oh, whilst at school
Mhm.
in Scotland, I did a paper round because family didn't have any spare cash. I mean, it wasn't a case of, okay, go out and buy yourself a grand piano. Um, so I did a paper round in the middle of winter in Scotland, which was an experience, and saved up enough money to buy a solid electric guitar. And so that was my first experience into music. And I was introduced to it by a friend of mine at school again, guy I went to school with, and he was a natural musician. I mean, you could pick up any instrument and just play it. I hated him. So I used to struggle. I used to struggle with, get the finger over there. And we became great mates. And I often tried to get in touch with him again, but never able to find him. His name was Tom Russell, and I keep looking for him, but never find him. He and I, whilst we were doing one of the lessons was technical drawing,
Okay.
and and so you had large sheets of paper with T squares. You're doing technical drawing anyway. And one of the tools you had was this long piece of wood with a T on the end of it,
Okay.
and we used to draw. Oops, we used to draw lines down it. Sorry, I just banged the microphone. Used to draw lines down it, and he used to show me, okay, this is C. Put your fingers in, and okay, and that's so that was really started my interest and my love of rock music. So I don't know how I got here. What's the question again?
Well, your first instrument, and
Oh yeah.
talk about some of the early bands and artists that you were into, that you
Oh
started
well.
following.
Um, in the early days in Scotland, I was in one or two um, amateur bands, and we used to go out and do gigs. At the time, we got something like about £4 or £5 a night, for them, which was, I guess, in those days, it was quite good money. But we also had the opportunity of seeing bands like, I mean, I remember watching Alex Harvey. Do you know Alex Harvey?
Oh, Yes, I
Have
do.
you come across Alex Harvey? I was at a show when Alex Harvey's big band was there, and wow, I mean, I was gobsmacked because this guy, he was on the stage playing the most intricate guitar solo and having a conversation with the guy down on the just below him on the stage. How on earth does he do that? How on earth? How can you separate your brain into
Right.
those two compartments? It's incredible. So Alex Harvey, I was a big fan of Alex Harvey.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were others that came along
Sensational.
subsequently.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sensational Alex Harvey band. Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
sensational Alex Harvey, and that's right.
Yeah,
And of course, the big break for the poets was Andrew Luke Oldham.
yes, yes. How did that come about? Did he just form an interest in the band? How did he sign you guys?
Um, well, I think it's fairly well documented. I mean, um, Andrew was in love with a young girl, and he wanted to legitimize it.
Mhm.
At the time, she was too young to be married in England, but the law in Scotland was much more relaxed, and so I think at 18 years old, she could be married to Andrew in Scotland, and so they moved. He packed her up and moved her up to Glasgow with the intention of putting the bands out, getting married, and everything else. While he was there, he saw a magazine which featured the poets and. Having a commercial eye out for new talent, he said, "Oh, I'm interested in that. They look original." And so we got in touch with the manager. The manager rang George. He said, "Oh, the Rolling Stones manager is interested in you." And then you pick George up off the floor and said, "Okay, yeah."
Off the floor.
So wow, yeah, because I mean Andrew, I don't know. At the time, Andrew to me looked like a very sophisticated, mature person. And in fact, I think he was probably only about 3 years older than us. And, he'd achieved an awful lot in that short space of time. And um, and so we obviously went to meet him and met up with him. And he said, okay, I like the style you've got, guys. And I'm particularly interested in the fact you've got some new material. I'd like to hear it. So he actually booked a recording studio for, I think he took it for 2 days. He said, okay, 24 hours. We're just going to camp in the recording studio and just play. Let's see what you've got. And so we did that and played everything we had for him. And he said, yeah, okay, I like that a lot. We'll be signing a contract. You'll be contracted to me. And next up will be down in the Decca Studios in London. So that was wow,
Yeah, yeah.
so
And
amazing.
then
I mean, it just moved so quickly within the phone call saying Andrew Luke Oldham wants to talk to actually signing a contract and being in this big studio in London. It was about 2 weeks. Incredible, absolutely incredible.
very,
I
very,
mean, at the
very,
time when we were rubbing shoulders with people we thought, wow, how could this happen? I mean, it's amazing. Yeah,
well, let me ask you. Yeah, that was fast because so many musicians, they were knocking on doors forever and ever, and just get no reaction,
sure,
and
sure.
and then to kind of fall in your lap like that. That's for you guys were in the right
Oh,
place, at the right
so
time.
lucky, so
Yeah.
lucky.
Well, let me ask you about your image. Were you wearing the outfits with the velvet jackets, ruffled shirts
Yeah,
before
yeah.
he signed you? Before he
Oh
signed you?
yes, oh
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. One of the big things that happened was um, I'll go back just a little bit because how I became involved in the poets was quite
Yeah.
interesting. I was sat in I sat in the cinema with
Yes, I
a
want to
girl.
hear this.
We were on the back row upstairs in the balcony, and it was all going rather well, I have to say. Um, and then all of a sudden the lights go up. At the time, the lights go up, and a lady carrying a carton of ice creams appears down at the bottom. And I said to this girl, would you like an ice cream? And she said, oh yes, please, wouldn't mind. And then I spotted Alan standing beside the ice cream lady. And I said, oh, look, it's a friend of mine. So I'll be back in a minute. I went down and Alan says, oh, I've been looking for you. He said, we've got a recording deal. He said, I'm with a group called The Poets, and we're doing a recording session in London, and we'd like you to join if you can make it. I said, yeah.
Don't have to ask me twice.
I'm there. So I said to the lady, I said, when do I have to let you know? He said, no. I said, okay. I said, okay, right. And when will all happen? He said, you've got to come with me now. I said, I'm with this. I said, okay, just give me 2 minutes. So I went back up the stairs. I said, sweetheart, listen, I'm very sorry. Something serious has happened and I have to go. And I'll make it up to you somehow. She said, what, are you going? I said, yeah, I'm afraid so. I have to go. Okay. So that was it. And
Did
I
you
met these.
did you
I
make
met
it up?
these
Did you
guys.
make it up to that girl, or did she ever
I'm
forget?
still intending to do so, actually, Greg. One of these days, okay. If she
It's never
sees
too
this, if
never
she
too late.
sees this, then yeah, okay. Um, so um, what happened then? Alan took me over to where Hume's house was, and his family were quite wealthy, had businesses, and they had a number of shops and stores. I ended up in this house, and I thought, wow, this is a mansion, and it was indeed a mansion. And I was amazed that these guys, particularly George and Hume, were just so talented. And they just opened my eyes to things because up until then, I was just copying people like Cliff Richard and Eddie Cochran, people like that, just copying note for note what they were doing. And then all of a sudden, I met these guys who were original and writing their own songs, their own music. I thought, wow, how did you do that? They said, well, you could do that as well. And I said, could I? Yeah, right. And so that started off on the journey for me, which I still enjoy today. I still enjoy writing original songs to this day. And it's
Yeah,
thanks to those guys.
right. I
It's
was going to
amazing.
ask, did you have a penchant for that before? Did you like writing before you did? Okay.
Never knew I had it in me. Never knew it. And wow, they just opened it up and it was fantastic. So yeah.
So you
Uh, but that was the start of the Poets for me. It was amazing.
the outfits were very striking. I mean, it helped you really
These
stand out.
guys, these guys, as part of their approach to it, also had the concept of being absolutely original. They didn't want to copy Andy. They were happy to take um, music from people like Marvin Gaye and various other R&B artists as well, and put their own stamp on it. And I thought, wow, that's fantastic. And that also meant that they were very much sought after as original musicians in around Scotland, particularly Glasgow, Edinburgh, that area. They were always in demand. And wow, I mean, all of a sudden I felt I'm now standing on the shoulders of giants. These guys are amazing. So it was fantastic. It was wonderful.
Yeah, well, we'll
Yeah.
talk a little bit about some of the live shows early on.
Mm.
Any that stand out or
Mm.
that you remember?
Um, well, the sequence of events was quite interesting um, because we were the second group under the Andrew Loog Oldham banner. It generated an awful lot of interest in the press and in television, radio, and so on and so forth. And so overnight, people were knocking on our door saying, we'd like to have an interview, we'd like to come and do something for us. Excuse me. And um, I mean, this was all new to us as well. We had people who were looking after our interests in that respect and guiding us, but we were pretty much taking it as we found it. And I think also the fact that there was a Scottish element, and I don't think there was any concept that new talent was going to come out of Scotland at that time. And so all of a sudden, these guys from north of the border with a strange accent, all of a sudden, so I became very much darlings of the press. I mean, and also we did television as well and various radio shows. And so therefore, the things which stand out were the various media things we did. We didn't really get into
Oh.
live shows until after the record Now We're Thru came out, and it became popular, and it
You started
wasn't.
promoting that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I wanted to show you before talking about the song.
Okay.
I want to show
Yeah.
you this. I don't know if you even recognize this vinyl.
What?
Can,
Wow.
can you read that at all?
Yeah,
It's
too, actually. Eric Clapton, David Bowie, Steve Marriott.
it's
Yeah,
his heart. It's
Alexis
called,
Corner.
yeah, Hard Up Heroes is what it's called.
Yeah,
I
Hard
bought
Up
this.
Heroes. Yeah.
I bought this years
Yeah.
ago, and of course
Right.
it's on Decca. It's on Decca,
Decade, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
inside it's a
Yeah.
double album compilation.
Wow. Right.
Inside, I can't put this up there. I think it's too small. But Now
Okay.
We're Thru. Now We're Through. That's the first time I heard the song.
Wow.
And Now We're Through is on here.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
again,
Amazing.
it's got a lot of different artists, and some of them went on to be pretty big. Of course,
Yeah.
Bowie.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
John Mayall. But yeah, so that was the first time it's on here, and I held on to that. So
Oh,
yeah,
fantastic.
the were you surprised? Speaking of the song, how well the song did, hitting number 30,
Disappointed.
31. Yeah, yeah.
Disappointed, actually. I mean,
Oh,
it's it had a lot of momentum behind it, and a number of people would say that it wasn't typical of the poets. It was a certain degree manufactured, and it was semi-experimental
yeah.
by Angela Goldham, and so therefore disappointment within the band for the fact that it wasn't really us. It had Andrew's stamp on it, which okay, understandable. Um, I always felt, and I think a lot of people would agree, that the one that came out, that's the way it's got to be, was much more reflective of the poets, and in particular George. I mean, he let go with his voice in that, which was brilliant, I thought. And
Yes.
sadly by that time, of course, the initial reaction, the initial interest had waned a little bit, and Andrew was busy doing other stuff as well, and so we didn't have the same momentum behind it. But it was for me a much better, much more improved record.
Well, yeah, it does. It does have his influence on that. I did want to mention, though, I mean, it did hit number 31 on the UK singles chart, and you were
Yeah,
one of the first Scottish bands to
yeah,
hit the UK charts. But as
yeah.
far as the song goes itself, I think what stands out to me is that 12-string guitar sound on
Yeah,
there. Yeah, that's
yeah,
so different, and it's like I think some of the stuff that the Searchers, I know they played that too. We're doing
yeah,
at the same time.
yeah,
Kind of a
sure.
chiming kind of a sound to
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
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 that
you're
was
right. Yeah, and the Birds as well.
yes, the Birds. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, the American West Coast.
yeah,
Well,
Roger.
you mentioned that's the way it's got to be. I like the B-side track, "I'll Cry with the Moon." Do you remember that
Oh
song?
yeah, yeah, I do
Yeah,
indeed. Yeah,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
much so.
yeah.
Uh,
That was
It's as a songwriting trio, we shared name styles, credit. We shared credit for the records, and having been introduced to the concept of songwriting by George and Hume, I was very much involved in the creation of Now We're Through. That's where it's got to be. I'll Cry with the Moon, and various other songs as well. And I still get a buzz out of seeing my name on the labels. So it's really even these days. So
yes, yes. You did write or co-wrote quite a few of the
yeah.
songs, the singles that came out. Yeah, that must be satisfying, rewarding to go from initially starting out writing the material and then seeing it come in the recording studio come to fruition,
Very much.
and then hearing it, the final product. Must be like a very rewarding experience doing that. Well, you guys did tour quite a bit, did a lot of one-nighters.
Oh,
Uh, yeah,
yeah.
you know, you guys must have been worn out.
We we had a lot of unfortunate experiences. I think largely down to the fact that we were all fairly naive at
Yeah,
the time, didn't know really what was happening, and people around us were manipulating, wheeling and dealing, and we were just at the time pawns being moved around. So the schedule of one night stands we had was horrendous, and I mean it's almost like we're going from Dallas and then driving up to New York, and then the following night we're going down to Boston, and so therefore, with these kind of trips, day after day after day after day, and after I don't know, 6, 8, 9 months of doing this, along with various television shows interjected into it, radio as well, we were knackered.
yes, yes.
Absolutely, yeah, we
You
were done
you
in. Yeah,
you were done. Yes, you were. I can definitely see that and understand that for sure.
yeah.
Just beat. Well, what were some of the TV programs that you guys played on?
Oh, I think we probably did television shows in every local television company around the UK, particularly in the early days. Wherever we went, there would be a uh, tea time program where they would have guests on, and often we'd be invited, or the poets are in town, and so therefore we're going to have them on the show, and they're going to do and play their hit record for us. So I think we did dozens of shows like that.
Yeah.
But I guess the biggest show we ever did was Shindig.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and I mean that was memorable for a lot of reasons, and not only by the whole size of it, which was incredible, the way that they just produced it, and but also the fact that our hero at the time, Marvin Gaye, was on the show as well,
Right.
and
Right.
I mean, just the fact that we were in the same building as Marvin Gaye was gobsmacking, and then we had the opportunity of shaking hands and meeting him because he came over and said, "You guys must be the poets," and we said, "Yeah." So yes, sir. Yes, we are, sir. Yes, thank you very much, sir. And so we were absolutely uh, we were we were thunderstruck by the fact that this giant in our persona, this giant in our minds, was there and was recognizing us. It was amazing.
Right.
So we had a great time actually recording Shindig, and that is where I think there are still extracts of that show available on various social media,
Yes. Yes.
and I've certainly got posters of it. So
Yes.
as you can
Right.
see, I don't know, you probably can't see it, but this is my home studio. This is part of my home studio here.
Yes.
and outside there are posters and posters and posters of the poets and various people,
Oh,
including at the back. There's my favorite Rickenbacker. You know,
oh,
one of the first things that we did in the poets, we got equipped with new musical instruments, and I had a Rickenbacker, and Hume had a Gibson. And the interesting thing is that the Rickenbacker, the stock on the Rickenbacker, is about 2/3 the width of the Gibson.
uh-huh.
The other interesting thing is that Hume's fingers were about 2/3 the length of my fingers.
Oh,
So he was
you have long,
he,
long
he
fingers.
used to say he used to say, you know, your fingers go around there twice before they actually hit the strings. So it was, you know, I love the guitar. Sadly, I had to leave it behind when we left.
Yes. And how old is that Rickenbacker?
Oh, that's fairly new. That's about
Okay.
5 years old.
Oh, what is the
Yeah.
oldest? What is the oldest guitar you have?
I think the Ovation here, my Ovation,
Okay.
and that's 45 years old. And
Wow.
I've about 15 guitars in total, Greg. So
Okay. We're only seeing
that's
a portion, a fraction of
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's good that you've kept all that memorabilia too.
yeah.
I like to hold on to that too. From my past. Well, how did interesting? I want to hear how did American producer Bob Crew become interested in the band?
Okay. That is a little bit personal, but
Oh, well,
yeah.
if you don't want to, we don't have to. You don't have to talk about that.
Okay. Let me say to you that okay. Bob Bob found some members of the band attractive.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
and
Yeah.
he and Andrew were good buddies. Um, Andrew um, he had no real background in recording and recording techniques, but he had this drive to try to emulate other American producers, and he did. He tried Phil Spector. He tried to do Phil Spector sound with one or two recordings, and the Four Seasons he had Bob Crew produce some of our one or two of our records in a smaller studio you can imagine. It was brilliant, and so therefore it was an interesting association. Um, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Okay. Well, you
Okay.
guys, he wanted to bring you to the U.S. and you guys decided to go back to Scotland.
Yeah,
Uh, so that's
that's true.
that's nothing you regret. Yeah.
Sorry, Greg,
No,
I
I
lost you.
said, oh, I said that's nothing the band regretted. Uh,
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Because um, the it happened at a time when the opportunities um, occurred at a time when we had actually been more or less flat out doing gigs and shows for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. And some of the guys were saying, "Oh, I'd really like to go back to see my family and friends, you know, at least for a short time." And so some of the opportunities were missed because of that. But okay, would it be? It would have made a difference, I think. You know, had we actually taken up the opportunities and gone, I'm sure it would have done. But anyway, no, another life, different life.
yes, another life, like you said. Well, Andrew grew increasingly more preoccupied with the Rolling Stones. And
Well, understandably so. I mean, these guys were superstars, and so therefore they were cranking out $1 million
right,
sales, million copy sales every
right.
other month. You know, here comes bang, another top 10 recording. And so therefore it was perfectly understandable that that's where his focus was.
Yeah, yeah. That is that
And
where? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, at the same as I mentioned earlier on, we were fairly naive. I think the Stones had an awareness and a culture about them, which mirrored that of Andrew Oldham. There was an understanding and a command about the Stones and Andrew, which we in the poets didn't have. We were fairly naive lads, young lads from Scotland. We knew nothing at all about the business. We didn't realise what was happening to us. We were brand new, and so therefore, we at the time were not able to make the best of what we had, which is a great shame because there was real talent in the band.
Right, right. Well, I think it's a fairly typical story. I think there are a whole lot of bands like that. That, like you said, the
Sure. Yeah.
naivety of it, and when starting so young,
Yeah.
how could you know about the business side of it?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
That happened to quite a few bands.
Mm, mm.
Well, he did, yeah, spent less time with you guys, of course, naturally. Um, is that part of the reason that the kind of the writing started to become on the wall, a little bit with the band, and maybe there was some disenchantment that was starting. Uh,
Mm. It may well have been part of the reason for it, actually, Greg. I think you have to. I mean, we were struggling to survive at
yes,
one point, um, although we were being pushed about from pillar to post and various gigs around the UK. We didn't see an awful lot of money coming in, and so therefore struggling in that respect. Although we made thousands, the actual um, drop down of the money into our pockets didn't help an awful lot, didn't happen an awful lot. And so therefore, um, after a period of time, we were struggling. And that really was the reason why it started to disintegrate a little bit. And also there was the initial shock of Alan being replaced by Jim Bricky. And I have to say, Jim was a fantastic drummer. He was
yeah,
a brilliant drummer. I mean, Alan did his best, but he wasn't a great drummer. I mean, he was good, but he wasn't great. Jim Bricky came in, and boy, he was awesome. And but nevertheless, that was the first link that was broken, if you like, in the band. And so I think that was the start, probably, when Jim
and
came
then
in.
so Andrew didn't see any kind of potential of putting out an album because you just had the singles, so there was no
Yeah,
real talk about issuing an album.
no, I don't think so. I think
Yeah,
that what happened is that the second single wasn't a big success, and so therefore it's a case of, oh well, that experiment hasn't worked particularly well. We'll keep the guys ticking over, do the odd single here and there, but effectively, and just leave them to whatever they're up to, and so therefore, I don't think there was the incentive there for us to produce any more, apart from the odd single here and there.
okay, okay. Did now there's a couple of different sightings that you left the band. Was it 65 or 66 that you left the band?
I left 65. I left in 65.
Okay,
Yeah.
wanted to
Early,
clear
middle of, yeah, March 65, I think. Yeah. By
okay,
that time, by that time we were now doing gigs back in Glasgow, and okay, we weren't getting an awful lot of money, and the chances of us regaining the status we had previously, went 2 years previously, seemed very remote, and so therefore, you know, again, down to naivety, because myself and Diane had been we'd been seeing each other for a while, and my wife Diane, she was she was a top model in Glasgow, and thinking back at the time, if there was an opportunity for us ever to capitalize on that, it was then.
Yeah.
I think that we were still a number one band in Glasgow, and here I am, a member of that band, now going out with the number one top model in Glasgow. I mean, how commercial is that? I mean,
Yeah.
these days, ka-ching, we'd be wined and dined all over the place. But at the time, it just didn't occur to us. We didn't have that sort of mentality. And so we thought, well, okay, let's pack up and go. So that's what we did.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of media fuss about you leaving the band, though.
Yeah, yeah, there was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it was sad. It was sad to leave. It had been such a tremendous period in my life, and sad to draw an end to it. But it seemed to me at the time that we weren't going to go anywhere. We were now just a band around the Glasgow area, and didn't seem week after week after week to be making any headway. The spark and the incentive for writing and producing and recording music just didn't seem to be there anymore, Craig. And so it was a case of, well, okay, if it's not there, then they don't try to revive it. So, um, and I admit it, there was some dissent within the band as well, which didn't help. Mm.
Was was that dissent the reason that Alan left the band?
Oh no, Alan had left before then, way
Okay.
before then. Yeah. I mean, excuse me.
Bless you.
Alan left. Alan left at a time when the band still had potential,
Hmm.
and so therefore it was seen as a positive step for the poets. We were, bringing in fresh blood and new talent, and okay, we settled with Alan, and he left with. Uh, he left with a reasonable settlement, and so then he went back to pursue his business career. Um, and at the time, I think there were still opportunities for the poets, but it didn't actually materialize to any greater extent.
Yeah. Well, George was the next to leave, right?
Um,
I believe he left after
yeah,
you.
yeah, I think so. I have to say that I lost touch
Okay.
largely. I mean, people would tell me things and I'd hear things, but insofar as a direct interface with the band, I didn't have it
Yeah.
for many, many years. And it was only, I think, 15, 20 years later that I got in touch with Hume. And one of the first things that he said, and then I think the reason he got in touch with me was to say, well, did you get your royalty check for the Sienna Miller film? And I said, I had no idea what you're talking about. He said, well, you know, this Sienna Miller's film, Factory Girl, used, that's the way it's got to be on the soundtrack. And there's a check coming to you for several $1,000s. I was like, what? It's amazing. Thank you very much indeed. And that meant that, okay, the lines of communication were well and truly wide open then. And I started having a conversation. I said, maybe get together again? I know we're getting on a bit, but nevertheless, there's still some fire in the belly. Would you think about getting back together? He said, oh, um, he said, I haven't spoken to George for a while, and so I don't know how we get on, but we'll have a look at it. And sadly, of course, John Dawson died at a fairly young age, and so that left a little bit of a cloud there. But still, between Hume and George and myself, I thought there was an opportunity, for us to do something. never happened. We talked about it a lot. George went off to Bahamas, I think, somewhere. No, George and Hume went off. Bermuda, I can't remember. One of the Bahamian islands. He went off there, and sadly, within a few months, he died. Actually, it was just having packed up and moved over there. So the reunion never happened. And of course, when George died, I was the last man left, which was sad. But
Last man standing. Well,
that's
yeah.
been something. Yeah.
What do you contribute to your longevity to out
Oh,
on
wow.
living, surviving, clean living?
Yeah, yeah, I think so, actually. And um, I think it's true to say that despite all the temptations and all the pressures that were on us in the heyday of the poets, nobody succumbed to the easy way out and took drugs. I think that George maybe had a little bit of um, recreational use occasionally, but we were never druggies. We're never in any way, shape, or form drug users. So, and okay, that's that in one part is why I'm still relatively healthy. I play golf 3 times a week. I play bridge,
Yeah.
and I have an interesting statistic for you on the
Okay.
subject of bridge.
Okay.
Because I happen to know, I'm well informed that your mum also
Uh-huh.
is a keen bridge player,
Uh-huh.
and I bet she's as sharp as a tack
Yes. Yes.
because the University in California a few years ago concluded a study
Hmm.
in which um, I think they started off with about 50 uh, sufferers of dementia, various forms of dementia.
Right. Right.
And they divided them into two groups. And in fact, both groups continued to have regular medication. But one group was taught to play bridge. And eventually the group's numbers dwindled down until there were 12 and 12 in each group. And they continued to teach one group the rudiments of bridge. Some of them at the start had difficulty counting. Some of them had difficulty actually holding the cards. And they kept this going on for 12 months. At the end of 12 months, the group who had been introduced to bridge showed 75% less degradation than the other group.
Yes, I
You know,
believe.
yeah.
I I
Does that ring a bell? Does that
yes,
yeah.
yes. Because
Okay.
up until recently, I mentioned she's 90. She'll be 91 in June.
Right.
She was sharp as a tack. Yes, she
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Starting to go a little bit more, every day. But
Yeah.
yes, she played bridge, and you know what else she did? Worked crossword puzzles. Yeah,
Brilliant.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So both of those things
It's
really kept her.
mental activity, my friend. That's what it is.
Yes,
And
yes,
so I'm fit. As I say, I play golf 3 times a week, play bridge 2 or 3 times a week. I work on the radio still. I do a radio program still.
yes.
Um, and I've been for about 15, 16 years. I worked on a radio station.
What is
That
the
was
go ahead and give a plug. What is the name of the show that you're currently
okay.
today? Yeah.
Um, I'm now well, actually, when I moved to Spain in 2006, I approached the local radio station and said, okay. In fact, I think they were actually looking for presenters, and I approached them and told them, I said, okay, I worked on the radio in the Alaman in the early 80s, and so I've experience. And they said, okay, come along, do a demo, and I did that, and then they said, okay, you're on. come and work. And they said, we'll give you a slot. And so they did that. So I worked on this radio station called Bay Radio in Costa Blanca. Okay. And at times I was working 8 shows a week on this radio station, which was a bit too much. But I kept it going for about 16 years. And then eventually we decided that probably enough was enough. So I moved on. And they wanted to find a younger audience. So that's okay. So then I said, okay, guys, I'm off. Thank you very much. Following week, a guy who I used to work with at the radio had set up his own radio station about 10 miles inland. And he said, okay, you're now retired, but you're not. Come and work for me. And I said, oh, okay, Bob. And so I had about 3 weeks when I didn't do anything. And then I started working with Bob on a Valley FM. Valley FM.
Valley FM.
Okay. All you have to do is go into TuneIn and say, play Valley FM, and you'll get me.
Okay.
Every Saturday afternoon. I'm there. Saturday afternoon. Great fun. Great fun.
Okay. And what hours? What hours?
I do 12 to 3 Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
It's great fun. It's great because we're a small radio station, we're local, and so therefore, okay, we got a lot of freedom, which the bigger guys would really envy. I play anything I want. Saturday afternoon, click, I'm playing it. So,
that's a dream. That's a dream job for me. That's one that I always did. I didn't go to broadcasting. I didn't major in that in school, but I've always wanted to be program my own music. Not so much a disc jockey, but like you said, be able to play what I want.
Yeah, exactly.
That's got to be a dream. A dream. I mean, I would totally enjoy that. I would totally enjoy that. Yeah. Well, what couple of well, as long as we're talking about the Valley FM, what's a cryptic clue?
Oh my goodness. Okay. One of the things which I've always done in radio programs is to produce something which is a hook for the listener, something which says, okay, I'm going to throw this out, and if you want to know all about it, you've got to stick around for the next hour, because that's when I'm going to give you the answer. And so whether or not you go away and then come back again, it's up to you. You're going to be there in an hour's time to have the answer. And the cryptic clues are one of the things which I use occasionally. I mean, there are various things I do, Greg, but cryptic clue does seem to be the most popular. And I usually give a clue in a cryptic manner for a well-known recording. So I pick a recording, and last Saturday it was Listen to Your Heart by Roxette. And so the clue for Listen to Your Heart was hold the stethoscope to your chest. So that was a clue I gave you. Right. That was a cryptic clue. And I can't remember what the clue was for Roxette, but it was fairly cryptic as well. And so that's typical of what I do on Saturday. And okay, I put it out on Facebook. People tune in at 1 o'clock I started, and then about 2:45 I give the solution and play the song. So it encourages the audience to stay with me. Anything that does that is going to be good.
Yeah, I was going to say that's very creative, very unique, and like you said, keep them interested. Keep the listener there with you. I like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, had to ask about that because I saw just going through your Facebook, I saw cryptic clue. Here's another cryptic clue.
Yeah.
Well, going back to the poets, when did you first hear about Grapefruit Records, subsidiary of Cherry Red, releasing that compilation back in 2011? How did you first hear?
I stumbled across it actually, Greg, really just doing a search I mean, I'm amazed that sometimes you look on eBay and some of the Poets records sell for hundreds of pounds. I think, how can that be? And also on Discogs, again, the same thing, Poets records selling for hundreds of dollars. Are you kidding me?
Uh-huh.
But there again, and then all of a sudden up came, oh, wow, it's a compilation album. And there have been a number of compilation albums where the Poets are featured. And and okay, that was just one more. I still haven't managed to get a copy. So if you've got a spare copy, mate, okay.
I was gonna ask you for one. That was my real motive for doing this,
Yeah, there was, oh
Now you're
man, okay.
finding out
Yeah,
my
okay.
true
Oh,
reason.
ka-ching. Oh, yeah, right. It's actually there
I'm
was
just kidding.
there was an Australian. I don't know whether that was a grapefruit or not, but there was an Australian record company put out the compilation of poets, and I still haven't managed to find that copy either. So still looking.
Yeah, and then of course, all of your singles, probably most of them were on like various artist
Yeah,
compilations
that's
over the
right.
years.
Yeah, exactly.
You know that as well.
Yeah.
So, well, were you surprised when you started finding out about these compilations released years later that there was
Yeah.
still so much interest?
I'm constantly amazed, my friend. The mere fact that I'm here talking to you today is a source of great amazement to me. So, yeah, indeed,
Yeah,
very much so, very much so.
yeah,
Anything, I mean, the mere fact that, a check comes rolling in every few months for a few dollars for people who bought or played poets' songs. Again, I think that's incredible. Who are these people? What are they doing?
yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Well, you have to play some poets on your show, right? Do you?
Mm,
Do you?
no, I haven't succumbed to that. No, temptation hasn't come to me. Actually, what I do occasionally, some of my new stuff that I've recorded does make an appearance occasionally on my shows. I wrote songs for various Eurovision countries,
Yes, I was
and
going to ask you about that. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah.
Go-
Well, whilst presenting on Bay Radio. I happen to mention the fact that I was a fan of Eurovision, and Eurovision has a lot of people who knock it and say it's rubbish, absolutely. And I argue with them vehemently because it's a great spectacle. And whilst you go into it not expecting to have 4 hours of classic music, it's great entertainment. And it's also quite amusing at the end when you see the way that the politics comes into the voting. And so then I voiced my appreciation for Eurovision and immediately got a phone call from a guy who said, "Oh, it's interesting you are supportive." He said, I'm the local representative for the EBU and would like to have a chat sometime." And so I struck up a friendship with this guy. And he said, "Okay, I constantly get songs sent to me as entries for the Eurovision." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Could I send you some of mine?" And he said, "I'd be delighted if you did that." And so I started then to actually create songs specifically with Eurovision in mind. And 5, 6 years ago, I started sending them off to various countries. And there are certain countries where they have an open attitude to it. In other words, irrespective of where you are or who you are, if you've got a good song, send it to us and we will consider it. And so I sent some of my songs off to about 20 different countries over the years. In truth, most of them, although they will use some of my songs in their evaluation process, and you see it appearing in the list, they always go for the guy next door. If you're Slovakian, yeah,
Uh-huh.
they're not going to use a guy from Spain if there's a Slovakian artist and a Slovakian singer songwriter, and the same holds everywhere, more or less the same. Nevertheless, it was good fun. It was good to have the opportunity of doing that and to get feedback on my own
Yeah.
creations. And I continue to do that actually, Craig. I still have an interest in
Well,
in creating songs.
who was the artist that you were involved in submitting tracks for? It ended up being in Eurovision Song Contest.
Well, my mate Owen Paul,
Right.
it was, I mean, he and I have been mates for 40 years. And long before he became the darling of the 80s. And he has actually recorded a number of my songs, which have then gone off to various countries. So far, none of them, despite the fact they're good quality, and maybe some of those songs are so much better than the one they chose. It doesn't matter, you know. I mean, there's a whole mechanism behind it which you have to understand. If you've ever seen Eurovision, and you see that the scoreboard comes up in two parts, they've got 20 countries down this side, 20 countries down that side. And these are it starts off with the top, the winner here, that goes all the way down. And then down at the bottom, you've got the guys who are last and got no points at all, effectively. And so every country wants to be on this side. Very, very few countries want to be at the top because the cost of hosting Eurovision is astronomical. And so they want the kudos, countries want the kudos of being on the right, but they don't want to be too good, because if they're too good, they might win. And so,
so there's a lot of thought and strategy that goes into that.
Yes. Let's strike the balance, because you know that song's pretty good, but this one's not quite so good. We'll have the one that's not quite so good. Thank you very much. So there you go.
Well, it's been around for ages. Eurovision. It's been
50s, 1950s, 1950s, I think. Yeah.
Still still.
And yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well,
you remember it from your days in the UK.
Yes, exactly. Well, what is Woolly Rhino?
Oh, Woolly Rhino. Yeah. When I worked on the radio in the Isle of Man, I did a tea-time program, and again, one of the things which I've always endeavored to do is to produce that hook. And I introduced things like little quizzes, and I would always use the theme music, the same theme music for it to introduce it. You know, so today's quiz, blah, blah, blah. And the theme music I used came from an album called Woolly Rhino.
Oh.
And yeah, coincidentally, with that, in the Isle of Man, there was a lot of interest in CB radio at the time. People were getting into, okay, breaker, give me, I'm a breaker on side 10-4, you know, things like this. There's a lot of interest in. And so I had to acquire a CB radio, and they christened me Woolly Rhino because of the theme music. Yeah. And so therefore it's stuck with me ever since. And it's a great fun tune. But the album, can I leave you for 30 seconds?
Yes. There it is, the actual album. Okay.
Yeah.
Woolly Rhino.
Woolly Rhino. And the theme music is the one that I've used several times.
Yes.
So that's the story to it. That's the story. Yeah.
Yes. Do people still refer to you as Woolly Rhino?
They do. By accident occasionally, because I registered my email address as Woolly Rhino, even though I don't use Woolly Rhino in the address. The name comes up as Woolly Rhino, and then my email address is different. But people still refer to me in that way as well. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well. I guess we're kind of winding down.
Okay.
What's going on these days? besides your radio show and playing
Well,
golf and playing
uh,
bridge?
pretty much, yeah. What else have we got time for? I've
Yeah.
I I can't show you if possible. I would show you, but I've a big house, Greg, and it's I mean, I guess by American standards, it's not huge. It's 500 square meters, the house, and the plot is nearly 3,000 square meters, which for two people, it's so. In addition to my extracurricular activity, I have to look after the house as well. And this is my studio. This is like my den, if you like. I have the radio. I work with the radio from here. I have my home station, which I work from here. And when spare time provides, I come down here and play and create, work on something. So for me, my days are full.
Yeah.
And okay, occasionally, just occasionally, not occasionally, probably 3 or 4 nights a week. Yeah, nice to sit down, relax, and watch something on Netflix. So my wife's the same. We've still married after all these years. So
Wow. How many is it? How many?
oh, it's been a number of years. It's well, yeah, we were married in '65. You can do the maths.
Oh, let's see. I have to do the
Yeah,
math.
yeah,
That's boy. That's oh, okay. That's got to be
59. Like 59.
yeah. 50. Yes, yes, it is. 50, 59. What month? What month were you?
We were married on June, 1st of June.
Okay, so coming up in June. Yeah, 59. Wow. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Wow. Yes. Well. Tony, can you think of anything else you'd like to mention or plug or?
My friend, I haven't touched on my business career. I mean,
Okay.
that I had a whole lifetime of working. I was very, very lucky again. When we left the Isle of Man, left effectively bankrupt almost, and managed to find a job in the London area, and that led me into working for a company which you'll know well, General Electric.
Yes.
And yeah, and for 20, 25 years, I worked for GE, and I became their European, what they called EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. I became their sales manager for that region,
Okay.
and so did practically every month I would do 2 or 3 long haul flights somewhere. So, and after 20 years, at the turn of the millennium, they said, "You are getting very old. So would you like a desk job, or would you like this bag of money?" And so I said, "Well, don't
Yeah,
fancy the desk job." So
I'll take what's
was,
behind it. I'll take what's behind door
yeah,
number three.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that was my business career with General Electric. It was good fun, very rewarding, and they were very generous as well. A
Yeah.
lot of good times.
And INS, I didn't mention International Network Services.
Yeah, they were bought out by they were bought by GE.
Okay. So that's where that
Yeah,
connection is.
that's
Okay.
exactly.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you for inserting that and mentioning that as well. Okay.
All right, my friend.
Well, did we cover most everything you wanted to talk about?
If I think of anything else, I'll give you a ring.
Okay. All right, Tony. Well, it's been a real pleasure. It's been a real
well, that's great. Thank you very much indeed. I hope that the family watches this, that they find it interesting and not too boring. I mean, it's been a great pleasure for me rather, to recover and recap on those great days with the poets, and to the fact that I was involved with some guys who were really great talents, and I'll always be grateful for that.
Yes, yes. Well,
And
well, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's the opportunity you've afforded me to actually talk about it is again very much appreciated, Greg. And if I have another life, I'll be back in touch with you.
Another life, right? I like that. Well,
Okay.
well, Tony, you can definitely, if you want, bring it up on your radio show. Uh, once I get it edited a little bit,
Yeah, sure,
and then
sure.
I'll send you a copy
Please do. That'd be
and
great.
see what kind of
Okay.
mileage and responses we get.
Splendid.
And I'll, of course, post it on my channel.
Okay.
And that's what I always enjoy is the responses, and and hearing from people and that kind of thing, and maybe getting in contact with people that you haven't for years.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I know there are a tribe of people in Scotland who are still Poets fans, and if Lenny happens to hear about this and he tunes in and reads it and sees it, well, I'm sure that he will be interested as well. We'll have the odd comment. Lenny, who's with a band called the Thanes, and the Thanes actually do play poet songs from time to time, which is great.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's what I like.
yeah.
Hearing from people and new fans as well. That's always fun. So, well, I appreciate it, Tony, again, your time and for dusting off some of those cobwebs there.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But thanks for the stories. And,
Great, my friend. Great pleasure, Greg. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Let's stay in touch too. Yeah, I would like to do that. All righty. Well, we will
Okay. I
talk to you
certainly hope
soon.
so.
All right, Tony, and you all the
Okay, my
best to
friend.
you.
All the very best.